Everybody, hope you're having a great Tuesday morning. My name is Justin Howard. I am the Territory Manager over Missouri, Kansas, and Southern Illinois for American AVK. Been with AVK for about 5 months now, and we're still going solid. Today, we're going to be talking to you about how to install a traffic repair kit on a Series 2780 dry barrel fire hydrant after it has been hit in your field. So let's get right into it. At AVK, we take impact testing very seriously. In this video you're seeing right now, we hit this hydrant 3 times to simulate a 3,500 pound, 5,500 pound, and a 10,500 pound vehicle at 35 miles per hour. Each time we hit this hydrant, we made sure that we could rebuild our hydrants for $100 or less. As you can see here in this one, the little piece that went flying behind the tire there is the breakable traffic flange, which is designed to break in the accident. So in our traffic repair kit, it does come neatly packaged with the QR code on the box, linking this to our YouTube channel, American AVK. This QR code takes you straight to the how-to installation video for this repair of your Series 2780 dry barrel fire hydrant. The contents that come inside your traffic repair kit is a stem rod, couplings, a lower barrel gasket, 1 snap ring, 1 breakable coupling, and 1 traffic flange with mounting hardware. The AVK traffic repair kit can be found at your local distributor or through your territory manager. The required tools we're going to be using today to complete this task is the AVK hydrant operating wrench, the AVK hydrant T-wrench, AVK centering tool, your standard torque wrench, a 3/4 and 15/16 end wrench, a 7/64 and 5/16 hexagon key. So before we get any further into this, I do want to mention that no 2 impacts are the same on our hydrants. Each one could have the traffic flange inside the barrel still, or they could be already pulled out of the hydrant. First thing we do want to do is remove the lower barrel gasket and remove the snap ring if it is still in the place. As you can see here on the video, those 2 have been removed. We're then going to remove the nuts and bolts from the now broken breakable flange, and then remove the breakable flange if it is still in your hydrant. Next thing we're going to do here is remove the spring pins from the coupler pins in the upper stem. And then once that is done, we're going to work down to the lower barrel and do the same thing by removing those spring pins and coupler pins. Once those are removed, we want to discard the breakable couplings and throw them away and not use them in any further. We also want to make sure that you are being very careful not to drop anything into the lower barrel, whereas you may have to pull your main valve out and inspect it for any damage. So once we have removed the hardware from the lower barrel and the bottom of your upper barrel, we're going to go ahead and set this hydrant back up and take off the weather shield and weather bolt by using a 5/16 or 8mm hexagon key. Once that has been taken off, we're going to go ahead and remove the weather shield. So working down our hydrant here, we're going to unscrew the lock plate with a 7/64 or 3mm hexagon key. Some of the older hydrants that may be in your system may have a set screw instead of a lock plate, so we do want to remove that set screw and set that aside for later use. Once we have done that, while using the AVK operating wrench, remove the thrust nut by rotating counterclockwise. And then we're going to remove the upper anti-friction washer. Once that is done, we're going to proceed by removing the operating nut from the bonnet by also using the AVK operating wrench. I would like to point out, if it is an open left hydrant, that you are turning counterclockwise, and for open right hydrants, that you are turning clockwise to remove all your hardware. Once we have removed that, remove the lower anti-friction washer and set aside with the operating nut. Okay, now that we've got the operating nut and everything out of it, we're going to use the socket end of our AVK T-wrench to remove the stop nut from the stem. Now, while we're doing this, we do want to make sure that your upper stem is not rotating within your hydrant, just the stop nut will not come out. We are then going to remove the bonnet bolts by using a 3/4 or 19 millimeter end wrench. Once we have completed that, we can lift the bonnet off the nozzle section. One tip we do ask here at AVK is that you be careful when you do remove the upper bonnet from the stem for it to prevent any further damage. Once we have pulled this upper stem out of the hydrant, we are going to reconnect the upper stem rod to the lower stem rod with a new coupler pins, new breakable stem rod coupling, and secure it with spring pins. We're going to slide a new breakable flange over the lower barrel and be sure that we are putting this breakable flange the right side up by indicating on the text of this breakable flange, this side up. Once we have completed that, we're going to insert a new snap ring and a gasket. We're going to clean the nozzle section and the lower barrel faces and install the new barrel gasket after that. We are then going to lift the hydrant nozzle section assembly over the stem rod and carefully place it back onto the lower barrel and barrel gasket. We do want to make sure we check for the correct alignment of the barrel gasket and reinstall the nozzle section mounting hardware finger tight. Adjust the nozzle alignment, then torque the mounting hardware in a star pattern to 80 foot-pounds of torque with a torque wrench. Now, ladies and gentlemen out there, you may see those two berry tags at the very bottom of your hydrant. You may be wondering what that is. So the first one you see on there is the actual berry depth that this hydrant was manufactured out from our facility in Minden. That can be anywhere from 3 foot up to 10 foot. Now, the second berry tag is actually an extension kit tag we put on there to mark the new depth. Those can be from 1/2 foot to as big as you need, actually. And we just put those on there to make sure we have the correct depth of this hydrant. Once we've done that, we're going to wipe off the nozzle section and then install a barrel gasket. Once the gasket is installed, carefully slide the bonnet over the upper stem, and taking care not to dislodge the stem seal O-rings or the barrel gasket. Install the bonnet bolts and washers and nuts finger tight. Once we've done that, use the AVK seat wrench to install the stop nut tightly. And now we can start by putting our upper operating nut assembly back together. We're going to place one anti-friction washer on the top and the bottom of the operating collar. We're going to start by hand screwing the operating nut collar to prevent cross-threading. Once we do have it started into the bonnet, we're going to use the AVK operating wrench to go ahead and push it down all the way. Once that is done, we're going to lightly grease the O-rings on the thrust nut and screw the thrust nut into the bonnet completely. We are then going to back off the thrust nut to the next hole for the set screw or lock plate to hold on to the thrust nut. We want to make sure not to over tighten the thrust nut, as where it can make it harder for further maintenance or opening and closing of the hydrant. Once we have the upper assembly put back together, we are going to tighten the bonnet bolts to 65 foot-pounds of torque with a torque wrench going in a star pattern. So once we have done that, we're going to install the lock plate with a lock plate screw or your set screw with a 7/64 or 3 millimeter hexagon key. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, now that we have assembled the AVK 2780 dry barrel fire hydrant, we do want to make sure you open the isolation valve and test for any leaks on the hydrant. And we do want to make sure that everything is correct before we actually use this in the field. Now that we have successfully completed the AVK Series 27 traffic repair kit install,